Hey now.
You are now listening to the
Hey now. Hey now.
Hey now. Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
The Hey Now Media Podcast.
Yes.
Hey, what's up? It's Emma from Hey Now, and we're here with the Hey Now podcast.
Oh my God. What are you doing?
I'm taking over the podcast today.
Okay. Here we go.
All right. Hi, I'm Emma from Hey Now. I'm one of the marketing managers. I've been with the company for almost 4 years now. I started as an intern. And yeah, I'm taking over the podcast today to interview Matt Brower. You want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. I'm Matt Brower, one of the owners and founder of Hey Now Media. I'm the marketing director, creative director, do a lot of sales, and looking forward to this podcast. Not sure what we have in store today.
All right. About how long ago did you start the business?
So it was like 13 years ago. It wasn't Hey Now Media like what it is today. Maybe even like 14 years ago, but I had been managing bands and managing artists and really just putting together the media production piece behind them. A lot of the people that you had met early on were the ones working with those artists as well. And so I had just trying to figure that out was what was going on for a couple years. But 10 years ago was when we officially started the LLC and we registered it as Hey Now Media. I originally called it Hey Now Entertainment as an entertainment company. And so we moved to Hey Now Media, and around that time, that's when we, Ann was working with us. We brought in Sobel as an owner. We had a fourth owner, Kyle. But yeah, it's been 10 years.
It's crazy. Well, one of the questions was, who did you start it with? Do you want to explain who those people are?
Yeah, so I started the business somewhat on my own, just trying to produce art and creative and managing artists and providing them with all of that type of service. And I very, very early on realized that in order to produce art and sell it as a product, you actually need to have that skill set. So I was bringing everything to the table, from the strategy to the vision, and knowing we needed to do certain things, but just I wasn't a graphic designer. I couldn't make a logo. I wasn't making a music video or anything like that. And so one of my friends was Kyle, and Kyle was a graphic designer, an art director, and he was the one who I brought in. We just split it 50-50. Like, hey, I will do all the sales, all the marketing, I'll do strategy work, I'll take care of everything except for actually producing the product, and you produce the product. And then it kind of led to, well, we need writers, and I'm not a writer. And so my wife, Ann, who you've known for a long time, she's a professional writer, she's a creative writer, and does other sorts of copywriting. So I was like, hey, why don't you be a partner, and you could do all the writing and manage that piece and the art piece with Kyle, and I'll continue doing the sales and the strategy stuff. And then soon after I knew Sobel he was actually a teen when I must have been like 21, running a youth group.
I didn't know
here
that.
in Cleveland. Yeah. So from the time I graduated college, I was like 21 to about 26. I was doing that before I started this, and doing this at the same time as that as well. Just staying up all night, working on the music stuff and the entertainment stuff, kind of waking up, rushing to work, working during the day. And so Sobel was one of the teens. I think he was maybe a junior when I met him. And then he graduated, I continued on, and then he, went to college and came home. When he came home, I was showing him what I was doing, and we had always stayed in touch. And so he's always been extremely strategic. He has a marketing degree. So I was like, hey, why don't you be a partner too? And so we split it equally between the four of us. And then Kyle moved on. He wanted to, live in New York City, and he's actually an art director in New York City, currently cool. To this day. Anne's still my wife.
Yes, that's good.
Although she's moved on. She originally just like I forced her to own the company
Yeah.
with me and do the work, and she thought maybe it'd be like 2 years of kind of getting it off the ground. But I guess we didn't get off the ground for 10 years or so. But we've been off the ground for a while. I think she secretly loved it.
No, yeah, definitely. I think she misses it.
I know. She'll probably pop up soon.
Yeah.
So.
All right. What else were you doing before Hey Now originated?
Yeah. So, I mean, Hey Now was kind of always there. Even like, Jaffe's our producer, we were maybe in kindergarten or even preschool, and it was like the Beastie Boys were on MTV and Pauly Shore and MTV Spring Break.
I'm too young for that.
and I just remember like seeing the Beastie Boys and seeing Ad Rock and being like, I can do that. I can be that. I'm 5 years old now, but one day I'll be whatever age they are. And I just like was captivated by that. And at the same time, my mom was super into Howard Stern, and she, like always with Howard Stern, was Hey Now, Hey Now, Hey Now. So I was watching Beastie Boys one day and I literally was like, I'm going to have a record label called Hey Now Records. It turns out Hey Now Records was taken when I started Hey Now Entertainment in like 2007. But I did look, that stuck with me forever. So I've always been doing this entrepreneurial thing. And it's always been around my passions with music and entertainment and art and that type of thing. And so I was doing that, and in high school I was in bands, and in college our band was performing and we were touring, and I ran that band like a business. And I used my entrepreneurial skill sets. I actually had better managerial and entrepreneurial skill sets than I did musical talent. Like the entrepreneur in me saw that, Jaffe and my two other best friends didn't have a singer, so I became a singer.
Yeah.
It's like a horrible singer. And then
I could see that.
My other two roommates were drummer and guitar player, and they were insanely good. And I was like,
that's perfect then.
you don't have a bass. Like, how do you have a band with no bass? So I taught myself bass. So I've always been doing that, but the only like actual job I've had, well, I've actually had a million like jobs. Like I worked at Donato's, I've worked at Heinen's, PF Chang's, I mean, you name it, gas stations. But actual career, like graduated college, was that youth group that I discussed called BBYO. It was actually really cool. I was a part of it as a teenager, and I was just graduating college. I was in a band. We were touring. I didn't have any resume, nothing lined up. And
That's crazy.
The person running it was just like, hey, you should take this job. It's perfect for you. And so I feel like my parents forced me to do it.
Yeah.
Because I was going to live with them for like a year or two while we were touring around doing the music thing. And it was really cool. I loved the experience. The kids were great. I still stay in touch with a number of them. And yeah, it was all of my like trial and error just in my hobbies as a kid that I was able to sort of take the job, because he was like, hey, take this job. And there was no training. There's no, literally, you're 21, I'm 2 weeks from graduation. I didn't even graduate yet. And they're like, all right, in 3 weeks, take a week off and then you'll start. I'm like, start what? What do I do? They're like, oh, don't you remember there was that adult when you were at that program? I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. So I've always figured things out. But I was able to really learn entrepreneurship through that job, because that job you had to be the accountant, the membership person, the programmer, the marketer, you name it, you were doing it. And it was just me and my boss who oversaw 5 different cities in Ohio, and I oversaw Cleveland. So I was doing that and doing all of the music stuff, which became Hey Now, like literally transitioned the music thing into Hey Now. Like, was working with the artists and said, hey, let's try a business, or let's do a website for my dad, or Kyle's dad was an interior designer, let's go shoot photos and build a website, or make a video commercial for his dad. And before Hey Now was a thing, we were doing the Hey Now thing while I was working a full-time job, while I was touring, doing all this stuff. But we were doing Hey Now through the lens of like, we need money.
Yeah.
Artists aren't going to make money for the next 5 or 10 years. They'll get signed to a label. You got to pay all the money back. It's a whole other conversation, but a website costs $5,000.
Yeah.
You could get the money, it's cash, and then you could pay out the designers and the developers, and then there's a profit. And I was like, oh, that's a business.
Yeah.
Like, let's do that, and I'll continue managing the artists. So that's what I was doing prior to that. It was like 2000. I'd say things with the bands and artists really picked up in a real way regionally and nationally around 2004 or 5, and went until about 2012. And then 2013 is when we coined Hey Now Media.
Yeah.
So.
How did you take all that experience and really start up the company and become an entrepreneur?
I think I sort of saw the pieces and I saw the vision, and then I just literally tried it and failed a bunch of times. So knowing that we could fail in a safe place by building my dad's business a website,
Yeah.
by working with friends, family, and not sort of going too far out, but also like approaching Meg from Cleveland State at a conference our first year in business and saying, oh, you're here to get students to help volunteer for TED? Well, I have a marketing company. I'm going to brand the TED event. And just like really, and that's not like, I know I'm on camera and I'm doing all these things, but that's really not my approach. My approach is very kind of like, if we have a good relationship and it happens to
Definitely,
come
yeah.
up that you've brought it, to my attention that you need help, I might say, oh, well, I can help you with that. But at that point, I was very excited to make this work, and I'd seen the pieces and I saw how it could work, and I knew what my limitations were. I feel like that's a very strong skill an entrepreneur has to have. I'm very, very honest with, like, you'll hear me in meetings.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I can't read. Like, I can't write an email like,
Yeah.
hey, Emma, I want to post this thing. What
That's
are you
what
going
you've
to write?
got staff for.
Yeah. And if you can't identify those things and gracefully say, like, I can't write, let me bring in my wife who's a writer.
Yeah, you're very honest with everyone that comes through.
Yeah, and it's necessary because that's how the pieces came together. Whereas a lot of entrepreneurs will see themselves as that pillar where they're going to do everything and get it done and make the sales, and
Yeah, it's not possible.
it's just not.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very good at a few things, and I'm kind of okay at a lot of things, and I'd rather have the best people on those things I'm just okay at or even bad at. So that's sort of how it came together, where I was seeing how it could work and then testing it and making sure another thing I did was the first website was $1,500. Then I went with that
crazy.
website and I said, this is pricing strategy. $1,500 got me a portfolio piece, and it just proof of concept. Someone gave me cash. It's $1,000. It's not chump change. It's something. Then I took that website and said, hey, this cost me $3,000. Would you like me to do it for you? They're like, well, this is beautiful. I love it. And then it's like, oh, well, we could throw in a logo too. Now it's 4,000. And then those 5 projects at 4,000. I said, okay, well, here's my portfolio of 5 projects. We did all those for 6,000. Or this was 8,000. And you're not doing anything dishonest, because what I learned was that I was severely undercharging.
Yeah,
I figured out
definitely.
what it would take at a lower cost to practice and fail. And then once I determined that those $4,000 projects have taught me enough to now charge $8,000, then I could say those were $8,000
Yeah.
projects, because
It's
were.
worth more, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of how I pieced it all together.
When did you hire your first employee?
I think, Jaffe, were you the first employee? Outside of like ownership.
When I first started, the only other employee, so it was you, Ann, and Andrea.
Oh, right.
I don't know if she was a full-time employee. I
She
think
was. Andrea must have been our first employee. So Jaffe's our second employee. But Andrea was, Andrea Kaplan. She was kind of very entrepreneurial and similar to me in a lot of ways, where she was doing sales, she was doing networking, she was amazing at social media and social media management, posting and copywriting. So we brought her in to really focus on getting sales, and then within those sales doing your role of the marketing manager, social media, inbox management type of thing.
Yeah.
And then we soon after hired Jaffe to be the project manager.
I can't imagine you being a project manager.
I was the best.
He showed us what we needed to do to hire Emily, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. You were like, oh, this is interesting.
Right.
Let's get Chappie in a different role and bring someone.
Let's get our creative into a creative role.
Yeah, that was the plan from the start, though.
Yeah. I did tell you, I think we went to Merwin's Wharf.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you're going to do project management. It's going to suck. But as soon as we can hire a project manager, you'll get back into the creative stuff.
It was fine. It was a great
Yeah, we did
learning
it.
experience. And
You even went for your PMP.
I did.
You do not need a PMP to manage projects at Hey Now.
No.
That's a tough course. I don't know. We were excited. We were working with Cleveland State's ProDev. And I think we traded them for that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Who was your first client?
My first client was Saucy Song. Melissa Corey is a butcher in Cleveland. She was a really kind of well-known chef in Cleveland, knew all the Michael Simons and you name it. She was at Washington and Bistro at Little Italy, which the foods there is absolutely incredible. And she decided she wanted to start her own butcher shop. And she was doing like an online delivery butcher service where you could order chorizo, you can order meat, whatever you wanted. And then I think she was having pop-ups. You could come pick it up or she delivered it. And so we made the logo. It was the first brand book we ever made too. And it was the logo and the messaging and positioning and then her website. And that was very early on.
Yeah, that's a lot different than what we do now.
Right.
What was the last 10 years like in business?
I think it was like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I think, people love roller coasters. I think there's a sense of enjoyment and fun that people have. And it's a huge thing that people go to amusement parks. And so I say that in a way that's like, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
And like super fun. And like, I really, really love it. But it's like really stressful. There's all sorts of situations. Things don't happen on time. Payments don't get made. You name it. It's crazy. And it kind of, it's weird. You get to this like point where you have your clients, you have your staff. If you could kind of break through to a threshold, everything's going to be perfect. And then you get to that point and you either took on too many clients, so maybe it's interns we need to bring on, or a new marketing manager, or someone quits, or a client quits, or we fire a client, which we've done a few times. And then you kind of like work backwards from that. But instead of going from back to zero, it's more, okay, we're almost at a 10. It pushed us back to an 8. Now we can get to the 9. We've never been to a 9 before. And that's like within reach. So it's this constant, like, we're almost there. And so I've learned to just like really have fun with that moment of not trying to get somewhere. And I hear this all the time about not the company, but just like, it's that journey, and it's super cliche and it's kind of dumb to say, but like, every time I'm looking forward to that end point and ignoring that journey, the end point seems kind of either disappointing or things fall apart when you get to that end point. You have to rebuild. Like we literally just had the meetings last week restructuring
Yeah, it always seems
everything,
like that. Yeah.
Right? And so it's okay. And this time it was nobody's fault. It was a complete shift in our entire world and society. Every single thing is different in marketing, starting in probably February. And so leading up to last year, the end of last year, we had everything in place. We had all our great processes. Everything was great.
Yeah, it's completely changed.
And then all of a sudden we're like, oh crap, March comes around, April comes around, and we're very behind in where the world is. And so instantly changing everything, catching back up, new platforms, new process, meet, like all of that. To me, that's the thrill in entrepreneurship, and that's what's exciting to me. But it's also, people don't like that. People don't like change. Like if there isn't that consistent process, it doesn't feel so stable. So it's been an interesting push and pull between like innovation and stability. And it's good for me to be on the like everything's changing, we're learning, we're moving, but then trying to find the balance between that and stability for everyone else, I think is a really, part of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of moving in all directions.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is your favorite part about owning a business?
Honestly, my favorite part is just my own personal freedom, for better or for worse, whether I'm broke or I have extra income that month, or, it's a meeting I don't want to be in. Like there's negative to it, but I am really controlling whether I win or lose, whether I'm taking a meeting at 9 a.m. or I'm sleeping till 11, if I'm up at midnight, 1 o'clock, like I am carving out what I want to be doing. This was always a hobby to me. I've been super like fascinated by advertising, like television commercials. Like talking about the Beastie Boys, like that MTV thing would cut to a commercial, and those commercials would fascinate me. Like the Doublemint gum commercial where the twins were switching, and there's the Mentos commercial. Like I remember all of them. I could sing all the jingles. It was just like, those are like, I'm into like all sorts of stuff, and that's just one thing, but I don't know what it is about television commercials or like advertisements that, to me, I've always been fascinated by them. So to be able to produce them, direct them,
yeah, we've been doing a lot more.
Yeah, it's been super fun for me, and that's a path that like we didn't really do that, and I own the company. People
now
need
we're doing it.
We can make money doing it. It's really profitable. Well, shit, we're doing it.
Well, yeah, video is like #1 now, so
yeah, it's
good.
Great.
What is your favorite part of the last 10 years? What's your favorite memory?
I think there's a couple. I feel like maybe I said this on the last one, but the news article, I get the Cranes Cleveland Print magazine to my house. It's a newspaper, magazine, whatever you want to call it. But the big headline, front cover news, was that Key Tower was crushing it. Benish Law came in. There's all this national press about them, and it's all about how this building has been activated, and there's these amenities, and there's a real excitement around people moving into this building. Those are the things that we are doing, and that our client will say that we have contributed to that, and those are our programs that the news is saying this is activated space because we've activated it with them. We've promoted it, and we've brought people to that space, which is what activates it. And so seeing that in the mail, not knowing that happened, getting it, opening it, and be like, holy crap, talking to the
awesome.
like instantly reaching out to Cheryl, like, holy crap, did you see this? She's like, yeah, we're at 95% capacity.
That's crazy, especially where they started.
Well, not only where they started, but through the pandemic.
Yeah, that too.
Right, where we're hearing office spaces like literally last
no one's
night.
going back to the office.
Back to it. Everyone's in trouble. Commercial real estate. I forget. It was a podcast, and they were just talking about that. And then
Joe Rogan.
Was it the Tom Segura? Yeah. And they were talking about the investors in commercial real estate, and he was saying like people are in real trouble, and I'm thinking like,
oh great,
we had this thing through COVID, 95% leased up. That's really cool.
Is it at 100 yet?
We'll have to check. Maybe we'll put a little update in the ticker.
Top floor of Key Tower has been taken.
Oh really? Yes. Now who's in the top floor?
I was going to ask you.
Oh really?
It's a secret. I have no clue.
I know it has.
I never work on the Key Tower project.
Do you know, early on, we were talking about seeing if we could get LeBron to take the entire top floor
Oh my God.
of Key Tower.
I remember that.
It's like, it would be so cool to live up there. And so we were coming up with the marketing pitches. Like, you could be the king of the city in your tower or whatever, but it was kind of dumb.
Didn't we get some like traction? Maybe not from LeBron, but from like his agents. They were like, "Oh, maybe we would do that."
Yeah. It was. It wasn't to live there. It was not. No, it was the. The marketing, not Clutch. No. That's the sports agency. It was the RMR whatever marketing agency they own. They were going to have their office there, but I don't know. It was a shot in the dark, I think. But yeah, the Key Tower project has been huge just because it's so visible. I mean, if you're in Cleveland, that's the biggest skyscraper. That's our skyline. And then I think the first TEDx event, they're all like really
you guys
cool.
always talk about that.
It was incredible.
I wasn't there for that.
Yeah, it launched our career. It was 2014. It really put us in a place where we were a main sponsor next to Parker Hannifin. And like, there aren't many companies bigger than Parker Hannifin. Like, they're probably the biggest in Cleveland. Like, it was a huge deal for us. We got a lot of leads and a lot of sales out of it. But we were able to sell it out. And it was like 800 tickets. It was a huge event.
That's awesome.
The designs were like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, they looked really good.
Yeah.
I still see them. You guys have them hanging up. Well, we used to have them hanging in the office.
That's our boy Juan 1000.
Yes.
That's your brother-in-law,
kinda.
brother.
Yeah.
Your sister-in-law's brother.
Yes.
Which my brother-in-law's brother works for my dad. So that's
crazy.
a thing, right?
Yeah.
It's somewhat of a relationship.
Yeah.
But that was like, we had t-shirts printed with our designs. The program, the flyers, the banners, we made experiential things in the environment. People could go through and engage with exhibits we built and created. We filmed it. We put out recap videos. Like, it was cool. And it really showcased anything we could do, we got to do for that project. From video, website, we made animations and movies and just, you name it, we did it. And that, it all was like really good. And it put us from just like charging a couple $1,000s to companies that probably won't ever succeed. And a lot of them have actually, but just like, we're in our garage, like not a company, to we bought an office, we have 20 clients. Like, things were really moving after that event. And it was cool. It never went away, that buzz or momentum. It's been almost 10 years. It was a year into our career.
That's crazy. Do you have any advice for anyone looking to do what you do? I would really, know thyself, they say. I think it's one of Jung's things, but Jung's a philosopher. But know thyself, really, really, really focus in on what you're not good at. Even if you're like okay at it, don't do it. Like, first of all, you have to do everything, but the second you don't have to do something, get it off your plate. Bring in someone, bring in the expertise. I've still to this day am continuing to reinvest in the business. And now it's not 100% of the dollars are reinvested in the business, but it's still a large portion is continuing to grow and build that foundation so that we can continue to do, like, if I'm paying my bills, like, we're good. This is what I want to be doing. And for marketers graduating or artists, this is their passions. And so, like, if we could all make a living, like, this is really exciting. So I think know thyself, really focus on a comfortable living. Like, I remember all the things I did leading up to this until probably I was maybe 30. It was probably 5 years ago where I realized, like, okay, I don't need to be some rich rock star, mogul, multi-billionaire, owning all these businesses or whatever. I just want to pay my mortgage. Yeah, as long as you're doing what you love, then it doesn't really matter. Right,
because that's what I thought. I was like, well, shit, if I could just pay my mortgage and I have food, like, even if I'm not working, I'm finding myself making these videos. I'm taking photos of Edie and Elle, and they're doing stupid things. I'm, like, trying to come up with the next sort of, like, it's in a way related to marketing or branding, or, I'm thinking like, oh, I'll own a farm, but then I'm like, oh, well, what would the logo be? And like, we could have the coolest commercials.
Everything comes back to marketing.
Right. And so it is like, well, then what do I need all that for if I'm already doing it? And so I would really, like, especially young people, really have this perception of like, I need to be rich and I need to be famous and all this stuff. And it's like, you can make $150,000 a year and feel really, really good. Yeah. Be in an amazing spot. And that's very attainable. So there's that, and then there's just the like surrounding yourself with the right people. You know, we got you guys, we have everyone on the team. There's always, every step of the way was like, all right, I'm really good at this piece. Pull in Kyle, pull in Ann, get Jaffe to do this so eventually he could do that. Just like really understanding where you sit and where everyone else sits so that you could bring the team together. Because I think as the entrepreneur, the number one thing is building that team and having that team in place so that like you're an entrepreneur to solve a problem, but the way in which you solve that problem requires multiple disciplines, multiple people, all sorts of different approaches. And so if you're only focused on your approach, you only solve it in one way, and you're going to be missing the boat, I think.
Definitely. All right, I think that's it. That kind of wraps things up. Any closing statements?
No, I think that was great. I really appreciate you interviewing me. This was fun.
Thanks for letting me host.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Very cool.
Yes.